And welcome everyone to today's LinkedIn Live event on transformation, especially in the energy and utility sector. I'm your host, I'm Sandeep Joshi from Measurable Impact. And I'm super thrilled to have a couple of really cool industry experts, someone especially like Rock Moraine, who is who's dialing in at absolutely odd hours at the moment, all the way from Europe. So Rock Moraine, the global lead of energy and utilities at Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sandeep. Welcome, everyone. And yes, indeed, it's a bit early here from Paris, but I'm thrilled to be with you today because it's a topic that's really close to my heart. And I'm happy, of course, to support this region, Australia, New Zealand, and Asia-Pac in general.
Fantastic. Well, really good to have you with us. And we've also got someone locally, a network business leader from Brisbane all the way. We've got Guy Kelly. Guy, welcome.
Thanks, Sandeep, and welcome to the live stream, everyone. I hope today is informative and interesting for those that are attending. And let's get into it.
Let's get into it. I mean, it's all about talking about exploring new trends and challenges and this dynamic industry, especially into the ANZ, or even if you want to talk about the surrounding region, like the APAC region. There have been some significant changes happening over the years, and yeah, we want to make this event as exciting. And Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise, ALE, has been working on quite a few initiatives, so it will be good to come up with some ideas and thoughts on where we can or how to talk about those challenges and how we can tackle them. So let's get straight right into it. The first one, we can start off with some, probably talking about some current trends, right? So as you know, even the Australian government has sort of committed to like this net zero strategy by 2050. And a lot of times what it does is it's sort of drives significant investments, especially into the renewable energy sector, right? And what are some of the key challenges that you guys see with this shift when the governments are trying to get to a net zero, or the world is trying to get to towards net zero? So maybe Rock, how about, since you're the only one who is dialing in at very odd hours, you're going to get my priority to answer that question first.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep. So, and I will give maybe a different perspective from Australia, New Zealand, and as well share some European trends. So, yes, there is a big shift into this industry. We see today more players. So all the big players are moving to renewable energy, and at the same time, we see a lot more players coming into this field. And on the upstream side, creating more energy, you see a lot of wind turbine projects happening, like in west of France. So we have a lot of customers west of France, north of Germany, bringing this new energy sector on the wind turbine, on the solar farm as well. So that's break a bit the market and make it a bit more with more player, smaller player. And at the same time, we see a shift to the digitalization of all these environments. We have been in this industry for roughly 10 to 15 years, but we were really on the grid, on the substation of the energy, and on the power plants. Now we see a lot more coming, having smaller elements, and it's possible that we will see a kind of disintermediation of that, where the customers, the distribution, in fact, will belong to a different organization than the one who produce energy.
That's awesome. Guy?
Yeah, I think, look, more broadly, obviously net zero by 2050, it has an impact on us as well. So our own goal is also net zero by 2050, and we're progressing along that path. So, our clients and our customers expect, obviously, the equipment that we provide also to be environmentally sustainable. But look, also, I think just the energy requirements of the globe are going to be significantly higher over the next decade or two. Deloitte, there's a Deloitte report this year that suggested energy demand is going to triple by 2050. So that's a lot of extra power that we need to source. Renewables, of course, are not base load, especially. They're kind of up and down, and we need to sort that out. So, look, there's a lot of complexity, and I think that drives a requirement for innovation and excellent connectivity across the board.
Interesting.
Yeah, if I may rebound on that, Guy, because I think this is really a shift I would like as well to share. The customer before were not really focusing on, decreasing carbon footprint. I think where now today it's really a trend that we see on the RFP. So the customer are expecting a bit more from us as well. And we have shifted 4 years ago into reducing our own carbon footprint. Then we have moved to an ESG strategy. And I think we publish every year our ESG reports. And now it's not just for us, it's required in the RFP. So the customer are expecting us to actually show that as a company, we're changing our own vision. And we have as well the same vision to be zero carbon footprint or neutral, let's say, by 2030 and beyond. So we are really having in our own organization the same requirement that our customers are actually requesting now. And they want to see our vision at the same time. So on the product side, on the distribution side, and on the company as well. So the three pillars are really part of our strategy at the highest level in Actalis Enterprise.
Okay. Thanks for that, Rock and Guy. One of the key things that we generally talk, especially when it comes to this whole industry sector, is the rising energy costs. That's one of the key other things that have always come across whenever we have these discussions with clients, and has probably been one of the prominent issues, right, over the years. Now, when you talk about energy costs, but we also want to keep the reliability of the service, that also becomes a critical consideration in the energy and utility sector. So again, maybe starting with you, Rock, how are organizations dealing with these challenges, especially when it comes to keeping the costs low, but also want to keep the reliability high?
So indeed, Sandeep, so this is a very difficult equation that the operator energy are playing with. And today, the only way forward is digitalization and innovation. Without that, it's very complicated to continue because they struggle to have skilled people, so staff reduction and everything. Every very large operator of energy has the same kind of issue. So the digitalization is a must to accelerate, to automatize, and basically moving from an analog environment to a digital is a trend that we see now a lot into the operational technology and at this stage in this domain. We could see the control center is a key element of this operator, for example, supervising every element as much as possible on a real time, which was not the case before. And in order to supervise all the elements, the grid and at the production or at the distribution level on the real time, you need to see things fully connected, real time, and monitoring really thoroughly, I would say. And that is a big change. In order to do that, you will bring new technology, a lot of technology. And the first thing is the connectivity. And I would add smart connectivity. Without connectivity, you cannot, in fact, have your IoT. You cannot see what's happening in your network. And on the part of the distribution, you need to be close to your customer as well. So this is an element. So the smart connectivity for me is really the first element that is critical. And that costs, in fact, a lot of investment because usually our customers are covering a region, a country, and they are not small at this level.
Mm.
Yeah, that's right. I think not just in terms of the access to real-time data for informational purposes, but also in terms of how it affects the energy market and things like that as well, right? So these generating entities, they produce power, some of them on demand, some of them base load, and they're trying to sell that into the national energy market, and they want to optimize how they do that, and they can't do that without access to the data. And if they have that access to data, then they can make decisions that for the benefit of both their customers and for their balance sheets. But also, a lot of that analytics and the computing power to do that exists in the cloud, right? So this is not the sort of thing typically that entities are going to install on their premise, even though historically, a lot of utilities and energy providers would have deployed on-premise solutions. But everything's moving to cloud, as we know. It's been a trend for quite some time now. And that kind of brings in with security requirements and other things as well, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a little bit.
Well, that's probably my cue, but sorry, Rob, you wanted to cover something?
Yeah, because security is something, a trend as well, that we see in all those large projects. Before we were really focusing on the IT tenants. And then now what we see, those organizations are deploying a huge number of CCTV camera for the, security, physical security of accessing to this, new wind turbine field or to this environment. They need to protect more. And that has a big impact, in fact, because it's becoming now, of course, digital CCTV. Why? Because you deploy a very large number of those cameras, and you cannot afford in the security control center to have one man to supervise hundreds or more of camera. So now this digitalization is coming for a purpose, meaning you have computers who are actually looking at those cameras, and that will raise issue just when there are issues. And all the rest of the time, nothing will happen. So this change is very important, because if you don't think before, your network simply is going down just by putting, 100 camera. So this network was not there some years ago. So this trend is really important because it has a real impact on the way they manage the security. And we see a convergence between the OT and the security guy with the IT, because the IT guy are actually supporting at the end of the day. So they need to get prepared at the high level, because here we are not talking about small number of data. It's a very large number of data.
I think and that's a great example of, I guess, as well, the role that automation is starting to play, more broadly in all industries actually, but we're talking specifically here about energy and utilities. So, going back to that operational discussion, how do they keep the costs low but reliability high? Automation is absolutely key to that discussion, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we sort of go about that in a couple of minutes. But automation is absolutely key for all industries. We need to adopt it and advance automation to keep operational costs reasonable, but to keep reliability high.
Yeah, you guys are taking away all my questions away.
Yes, correct.
We're getting ahead of ourselves a bit.
No, that's okay. But look, sorry, Rob.
No, because I think there's another area which is highly important, because it's a cost for operator of energy. It's maintenance. I think maintenance is really where we see a lot of things happening. And in order to reduce this cost, they need to do as many preventive maintenance as possible. Everybody is trying to do that at all levels, because when you have something broken, it's terrible because it's too late, in fact. So preventive maintenance, meaning what? Meaning supervising, monitoring with many different kind of technology. There are elements, in some power plant that you cannot get close to, So you need, Wi-Fi is very useful in some area where you can connect your IIoT and you can produce those data. So this OT world is producing data, and then with some application, you can really follow up on that and actually react preventively to what you see. And that's happening for the OT world. And that's happening as well for our environment, the telecom and networking environment, where we monitor differently now that we used to do, even 5 years ago. I'm sure, Guy, you have some example on that specifically in our network equipment.
Yeah, that's right. We'll talk about it probably a bit later, but in terms of the monitoring, we now use kind of AI and machine learning and so on, in the operational space. But I just thought we'll come to that in a minute. I actually want to go back to the cyber threat discussion that we were talking about just before, because it's really critical in the OT space. The Australian Signals Directorate most recent cyber threat report noted 51% increase in security incidents on critical infrastructure, and
Oh, wow.
a lot of the look, it's coming thick and fast, and increasingly these attacks are sort of targeting OT, right? So industrial control systems, distributed control systems, SCADA, these types of technologies, because historically they've not been secured. They've just been, they've been deployed in an isolated network, typically not connected to the rest of the world. But as I mentioned before, now that we're trying to extract data and process it in the cloud, these systems are being connected to the real world, and they become a real target for both criminals and also state actors. So, we're seeing more and more, state-sponsored attacks against critical infrastructure, both in Australia and across the world.
Wow. And that's always been the key factor here anyway, right? Like when it's not just the local domestic challenge, it's the global challenge, like the significant uplift in the cyber attacks, and especially in the critical infrastructure, right? There has to be a way that, like, you'll have to isolate certain issues and then have a structured problem to it or answer to it. The problem is that everyone wants to do everything at once, and I don't think that's possible in any state of, let alone energy and utilities sector. But it's probably a dynamic answer to any other sector, I guess.
Yeah, look, it's about minimizing the risk, right, and addressing what you can in the most sensible way possible. And that's where the advent of Zero Trust came about, because you want to try and minimize the threat. We know that not every device is foolproof. In fact, there was a vulnerability released today by one of the biggest security companies in the world, that remote access to their management platform for their security devices has a major compromise. So these things happen all the time, and of course with unintelligent devices, or shall we say less sophisticated devices like sensors, IoT sensors and things like that, water meters, all this type of stuff, they don't have the complexity built into them to be able to defend themselves against security attacks. So it's really important, that Zero Trust architecture, so that you can segment and secure the different parts of the network from each other, so that you are never going to be exposed, or at least you greatly reduce your risk of being exposed, from lateral attacks from other parts of the network that may be at risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say for me, the cybersecurity threat is like the devil side of digitalization. And it's important to understand, because many of our customers are really sometimes reacting badly to it and say, okay, I just disconnect. And that's not the solution for them, for efficiency. So the connectivity is a must. And I know the threat of cybersecurity are becoming very high, because we're talking about national security kind of at stake. So, digitalization, we need to continue, and they need to continue to invest, but in a different way. They are aware that is going to happen. So they need to get ready for that. And the key is really what guys say, segmentation at all level, and much more than before. So I would advise not to go back and say, okay, I'm going to disconnect my this part of my network, because as soon as you disconnect it, you cannot remote manage, you cannot know actually what's really happening because it's somewhere else, or you demultiply your investments by a high number. So the digitalization and the automation and the connectivity is very important, but you need to make it smart so that you can make sure that this part of your network will never connect to internet, for example, and that part of the network can obviously go because your customer are, by the way, on internet, so you need to reach them. So you need to make that in a smart way. Some element like SCADA, you know, we briefly talked about SCADA, and today what we offer to our customer is really to have the capability on the same network to segment and to make sure that the SCADA protocol and the SCADA traffic, which is very small but highly critical for the operation, is protected, is managed, has the right priority versus some very large, number of data like CCTV camera. And at the same time, I think we're one of the few, if not the only vendor, able to record all this small SCADA traffic on our own switch, so that if anything happened on the, all through the operation, we're able to retrieve it and to bring it back to the organization. So little things that are critical for those customers.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Well, let me get to the topic that you both have already, or maybe I should say you're really eager about getting into that. So I think the advent of AI over the last, God knows how long, it feels like 2 years, but probably with the Chat GPT, because it went into that consumer mindset, right? This is where people already start to use AI in their day-to-day lives, albeit on whatever level. But how do you see AI being applied, especially into the utilities context, right? So what is the future of energy and utilities, or where it's headed when it comes to the whole AI and automation, or robotic automation, or wherever it comes through?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think you sort of touched on a couple there. So robotic process automation is obviously, that will be significant as we move forward. There's different things, when people talk about AI, it means different things to different people, and we've actually really been using AI for many years in various contexts. But of course, as you mentioned, ChatGPT was kind of the thing that brought it to the forefront of everybody's mind, and that's generative AI, right? A specific type of AI. I guess in the context of energy and utilities, generative AI, it'll probably be used in the retail market and parts like that, where in chatbots and things and other user interactions. But I think more specifically, machine learning and AI is much more useful in an operational context for utilities, because it's going to give them that awareness of what's going on in the network. It's going to be able to enable them to connect and transact on the energy market, as I mentioned before. If you're talking about AI and markets, you just look at how financial trading has changed over the last few years with the advent of machine learning and AI. That's been a substantial impact with automated trading. So I think you'll see similar things in the energy sector. But yeah, definitely that. Ultimately, AI is just really good at pattern recognition, right? That's what it excels at. That's all it is. In a nutshell, it's really advanced pattern recognition. So it will look at the network. It'll look at things that are happening across the energy grid, and compare it to what normally happens. What's the baseline? And when it sees things that are wrong, it'll address them. It'll identify them. It will potentially try and fix them, or it will notify someone else that if it can't fix it, right? And I think that's where it's going to go. And AI will gradually get better at fixing things by itself. The more it's used in the network.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. And what we see is in two fields. So on the generative AI, exactly as you say, we see that more on the utility side, the bots that are becoming more intelligent and really, integrated into the application, smartphone application. So on this part, we see some interest on the generative AI. But the real benefits, it's, as you say, Guy, on the operation side, with two main fields. One is, of course, maintenance, as you say, but the other one is on the video usage, analytics of the image to be able to see a maintenance problem, analytics on what's happening in some remote area, and then being able for the real human people to react based on what's happening. So we are seeing a lot of progress in it. We, as Alcatel Enterprise, we're not delivering energy. We're delivering network and we're delivering communication systems that are critical to this energy world. So I think it's important to position ourselves at the right place. But yes, we are applying artificial intelligence for our own network to make sure that it works well. Because today, if the network is down, the energy is not provided simply because it's all connected. We need to bring the energy where it's required, and this is why we monitor it thoroughly. But if the network is down, it doesn't work. If the communication is down for safety reason, things are as well shut down. So at all these two very critical pillars where we play a very important role, they are critical, but most of the times are hidden because you don't want to hear about your connectivity, because if you hear about it, there's something wrong. So we try to bring it visible today with you, but the fact is we make everything to make it invisible because it works smoothly, in fact.
Interesting. So ideally, if we had to point out, let's say, the way we spoke about today's session as well, right? So we talked a little bit about the net zero, which is all about ESG and how people are trying to report and try to understand how much, that net zero targets are or the plans are. We talked about different costs and how to lower the costs and still have the high reliability. Cyber attacks, obviously, and AI, right? If we talked about these key four things, when for an ENU obviously established organization, where do they begin? What is the journey that they are at and on an average level? And this is probably something that, a lot of times we do discuss, but what is the typical journey of these guys to start prioritizing these when it's on their planning list?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of utilities are, the utility assets are deployed with a very long lifespan typically. So, they build infrastructure and they expect it to last decades. And of course, technology in the IT and more recently in the OT world moves a lot faster than that. So I think a lot of energy and utilities are starting to come around to the idea that they're going to have to, I guess, look at this sort of thing more frequently and adapt with as the technology matures. In terms of how they're going to get there, look, it depends on the type of the part of the market they're in. The energy, the retailers are pretty far advanced, I would say, down that path, because typically they're, let's call them virtual sort of organizations. They resell power that they don't generate themselves, and they probably don't even transmit it. They just resell it. So they can move fast and adapt quickly because they don't have to forklift things and build buildings and put towers up in the field. So whereas the transmission and the upstream providers, it takes them a bit longer to get things moving, and of course you've got government regulation and approvals and a whole bunch of other things that will slow things down. It's really about, I guess, assessing. The first step is assessment. Is like, where are we on this journey? Are we right at the start? Do we not have any sort of digitalization in place? Have we taken some steps? What you need to, I guess, identify what the future looks like for your particular organisation, what customer expectations are, and then work on a roadmap to get there. And of course, Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise can help you do that.
Fantastic.
So if I may rebound on that, I think today we are working with people where the safety is very critical. So what we bring, in fact, we bring building block of technology for mission critical network. And that's for me the basic. It's to really start to connect things and that things are always running on. And the second one as well, because of the safety reason, is mission critical communication on the top of it. So those two solid building blocks are there. And we have a third building block. We haven't had the time too much to touch on it, which is a cloud communication. And we do private cloud. And I think that is the trend that will never stop, in fact. And this cloud is very important to not move away by saying, no, I don't want to go cloud, because now the train is gone already. So we need to make sure that our customer understand the benefits of it, understand the complexity sometime or the security part of it, to make sure that they can develop and use the technology of API, SDK, and the simplicity of deploying application thanks to this cloud technology, but secured, could be on-prem, and then to maximize, the usage of this automation and this digitalization. I think it seems a vanilla creme word, but this is what actually happening on this OT world, and we are looking forward to help those customers with that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you, both of you. Quite a few things that we discussed, and it's never an end. It's always a journey, we call it. And no matter which sector, what industry, there have to be some critical steps that each one of them have to take to have that structured approach on how they want to solve their solution or problems, rather, right? Let's open it up to the floor and see if there is any questions that anyone wants have any questions on. Let me see if I can open up one of the streams. While we wait for it, so one of the key things I might ask is, where to from here? Let's say some of yours, let's say in the ANZ section, probably for you, Guy, in the ANZ region. People who are probably watching this live cast or will watch your live cast shortly, I'm assuming. If they have questions about what the journey is, and we've talked about these workshops that we've been building, sort of a discovery sessions where people can come in and understand what can they expect in that initial discussion if they had more, want to talk more.
Yeah, look, absolutely. We can meet with customers and sort of talk about where they are in that firstly, like where are they at on that journey, as we already discussed, and then we can help them with a sort of a roadmap to get to, I guess, where they want to go, and how we can help them are in terms of, obviously we can bring the technology. We can also sort of introduce them to potentially other parts of the industry that can help them get there as well. Obviously, we have a lot of partners and customers that are part of this industry, and collaboration is a key element of what we do. At ALE, we've always had a very open and non what's the word I'm looking for? We keep everything open. We don't take that sort of
preferred approach.
Yeah. So anyway, we don't lock people out. We like to, all our APIs are open. We use standard industry protocols. We don't use any proprietary stuff. So that's the word I was trying to think of, proprietary. So yeah, that's where we go. And then we can sort of help them on their journey. So we can take them through what technology is available today. What's in the roadmaps as well. We can share obviously roadmaps and where things are going in the future. And of course, we're also really always willing to work with customers if they have particular requirements that don't appear to be in the market, then we're happy to talk to them and see if it's something that we can build into our future portfolio. Because if one of our customers has a requirement for something, you can be pretty sure that more customers will in the future.
Yeah, and sorry, just the reason I asked that is because it's such a wide spectrum of things that we talked about for any organization, right? And there's no one clear way we're helping them. We're trying to say, look, overall, it's a structured approach where we need to understand what your journey is, what your roadmaps are, and we will help you identify those gaps. Is that what they would probably
Yeah,
say?
look, it depends on it. So, we have some structured assessments like IoT assessments and things where we can, through questioning and interviews effectively with the organization, we can go through effectively model their current maturity in that space and then give them the feedback on where they sit in regards to the rest of the industry and, what sort of things they should be focusing on to move to the next level of maturity. So there are certainly some structured things. We can also do, informal discussions just to sort of chew the fat and find out what areas of what things are important to particular customers and what we've seen in the broader industry. These sort of, there's not a lot of networking events for this sort of industry. It's not a large. It's a large industry economically, but it's not a large industry in terms of personnel and people that are involved in it across the country. So, sometimes that sharing of information and understanding what other companies and people are doing, we can. That's immensely valuable for everyone.
That's a key.
If I look back into our customer, what we can say is many of our customer of us using our technology for more than 10, 15 years. So I think we've been with them through different level of technology. Some of our customers are still using SDH and continue. So the technology obsolescence is a big issue for this industry because they cannot change things. They cannot drill, cable in some areas. So you have to reuse what's there because it costs a hell of money just to do that. So we've been used with our customer to evolve and to make them evolve at their pace. And today, people are still using some technology 10 or more years ago and still working. What we try to do is to help them to give the technology that will be the best for them at the moment. And every organization is actually at a different level. There is things that we see a lot in Europe because of cybersecurity, which is NIS2. And this is a certification of organization for cybersecurity where we provide, and as a company we are. We think that is going to have a big impact on our customer because there are requirements that must happen, and it starts with the assessments of the risk of their existing network. So they do understand that in order to be today, they will need to be close to us through our partner and system integrator, because we don't sell direct our technology and we sell building block of technology integrated by business partner system integrator. And we want to make sure that they have access to the appropriate supports so that their product can live a longer life. We have a specific, very long-term support contract, for example, just for the purpose of energy and utility market and transportation market as well. We are quite similar for this long term. So we understand that. We are building that on the top of our solution. And then I think it helps each customer to move at his own pace according to that. But today, yes, we see connectivity. Connectivity brings data. Data brings AI, which is a good thing, but at the same time, the connectivity brings a bad thing, which is cyber threats. So all that goes together, and of course, you need to go through a plan. And because of those customers have usually a very large infrastructure, it's important to be able to go layer by layer. And we start as well from all the access layer, because usually this is where the threats are coming into your own network. And I will not come back on what the guy covered, you know, the zero trust network and all those technicality. We don't want too much into detail today.
Brilliant. I don't know if there are any more questions. I'll just quickly check if there are any other more coming our way. From your perspective, I guess we talked about the next steps that people can take. And, you know, more than often we've been discussing about this very, you know, targeted ENU-centric discovery sessions that we are running as a part of this program. So anyone who is tuning in, if you would like to know more about what this discovery sessions, what are we going to be discussing, what are the key you know, industry best practices, I guess, that we're going to be sharing, what we can do to build your own roadmap based on any gaps, any kind of, you know, assessments that we will do along the way. Feel free to leave your comment at the end of the session, or right under where the LinkedIn live sessions are, or wherever you're lining, because I can see quite a few people are streaming this session live, including myself. I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook. But there are quite a few people from Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise today. You can reach out to Vincent. You can reach out to, of course, Guy and Rock. There is a Paul somewhere who is streaming live on his own page as well, so we can see. And please feel free to send any comments. And yeah, gents, if you have nothing else to or keep your peace with it, I'll close the session.
Yeah, thanks Sandeep for your time today, and thanks everyone for tuning in. We hope to talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. I'll close.